it's me. So welcome to the workshop for Fusion 360. You can open the software now. We'll try. I believe everyone has internet access here because Fusion has a cloud system. Can't tell if this is recording or not. So I'll need some feedback if you guys have done the exercise and understand everything. You can interrupt and ask something during the workshop. If your laptop is a little bit slower, we can wait. We have the full day. If we don't make the cam today, we'll try to set up other day. I just want you to at least know how to create a 3D design. So this is Fusion 360 menu. If this doesn't show up, it will put a login and password to enter your account from Autodesk. Then you have here show data panel. I believe everyone has on English Autodesk. In this case, it will open this menu with fewer tabs. These are all projects that were shared with me. So Fusion 360 created a sharing system like a cloud, like Drive, and has a version control also. I'll show you how to use the version control later. So here, your identification, you can reload or refresh the whole page. This can be closed if not needed. You can create new projects here. I believe you'll have your first project. I'll open, and in the end, there are some basic trainings and simulation for all the tabs from Fusion 360. So opening my project, I already have different files and projects. In this case, you can upload a file. Usually, you can drag or select the files. The files supported here are .step, and those are the main files you can upload to your project. But also, if someone else has Fusion 360, all the files will be compatible. An easier option is to come here to people and share the project with others. In this case, my file is shared with Vitor. Mary, she had 2 emails, and Luis is our collaborator also. And you send the invite for the email they have on Autodesk, and they will have access to your project. A limitation of this is you can't only decide one folder. You have to share all the projects. Okay? So if you want to remove one of the files and not share that one, you won't be able. You have to copy to other project and then share only that project. You can create new folders here to organize your designs. There are some settings here as to sort everything in view. Here is like a GitHub menu where you can create branches, pull, push, and with the projects, let me find something. As you can see, there's some versions here. You click and see different versions here, and you can basically promote this. Let's say if you make a change and save, it will create a new version, and then that change doesn't do much you don't want it, you can promote the previous version to continue working on that one, and also open and show all versions. Users, you can see who stored. Every time you store, you can put a comment like GitHub. So it's really easy to use this menu. In this side, you have your account. If you don't have internet, your job status will be offline. Sometimes they're updating the system. You'll be offline because of them. You can only save on the cloud if it's online, of course. And here you have your preferences. In this case, this PC has a good graphics card, so I can use DirectX 11. You can lower this. The orientation you can also change. Also, I find it useful. Reverse the zoom direction with your mouse wheel. Sometimes people don't like the direction. You can flip or reverse here. Also, some settings on each tab. I'll show you later what are the tabs available here. Materials, you can also define a physical material to simulate or as a default material. Also the graphics, if it depends on the laptop or PC, you can define as a better performance or better display, but it's better to work like this, because if you want a better display, you have the render tab where you can render your part and see actually in reality how it will look, depending on the texture you add or the material it is. Also the frame rate, and so default units for each design cam will work with millimeters, because usually on our machines, maybe not T-Rex, but on the Haas, we always make small parts, so it's better to use on millimeters to have precise measurements. Okay, and then it's okay or apply. So this is our main menu from Fusion 360. Besides this I installed, but I can't remove it. So this, I'll close this to get more space. We have the model, is where we create the 3D designs, where we are actually working now. The patch is more about creating surfaces, more organic surfaces. Render is to, after you do your part, you add colors, textures, or materials, and you simulate and get a better design of your final product. You can also make animations where you assemble everything and do a, I can't remember the term, but where all the parts come out and start rotating and see how it's assembled. Also simulation for stress. You can simulate the stress on your material. The cam, where I believe this afternoon we'll learn a little bit. And drawing from design is when you're finished your part, you want all the measurements on 2D sketch on front, left, right, back views. So you use the drawing to put all of that, or side cuts. Two, when you start working, you have to be careful where you're going to store. So if I'm working at this project, if I start something and save, it will stay here. So we want, in this case, I'll create a new folder. You can create also new folder. Comes here, let's say workshop. It comes down because of the letter. You open, and then you can start working here. I can close this to get more area. So first of all, you always start with a 2D design. 2D designs are simple drawings, because every time someone wants to create something, it starts with a small sketch, even on paper. So this is basically the same. You start with a sketch, and then try to find a better way to create 3D profiles. In this case, the predefined units are millimeters, but you can change here. Change active units, you can change to any others. Centimeter, meter, inch, or foot. In this case, we'll stay with the millimeters. When you click on sketch, you will see three main planes, X, Y, and Z. I'll work on the Z. Why I know this is Z? Because on the preferences, you use the Z up, and has a representation. If I choose the bottom plane, I'm going to look from the top. See? Here is a... I'll show you the main keys to work on the environment also. So one of them is click on this to move the environment. You can also drag the cube and see front, bottom. You'll have a sense on what you're working with. Also, you can use the wheel button to drag your design on the same perspective. If you hold shift, it will do the same as holding the cube. Shift and wheel button from the mouse, and with this you can basically look at the whole environment around your part. Okay, everything okay so far? It doesn't. The wheel button, click inside the button, hold shift, click the wheel. Okay, so zoom in, it's the wheel, in and out. In this case, I prefer when I pull up the wheel, it will get me closer. That's why I reversed the zoom. For others, the wheel will get the design further. What's the problem? This? This, sometimes it's hidden on this side. Sometimes it's here. Look. Sometimes it's here. Maybe you exit the sketch. No? You can close the file and open again and see if it shows up. So, other thing that Fusion has, and it's really good, is the timeline. Here on the bottom, you can see already a sketch. I don't have anything yet, but this timeline will add everything you do while you're designing. And this is good because if you want to change something, you can go back, change, and it will update everything. If it has some relations, sometimes it doesn't work and you get strange forms. But I'll show you how it works and try avoid that problem. So I'll see if you click here, it will put right in front. And you have a better perspective, because if you're designing like this, you don't have a sense on It's weird. A square doesn't look a square. So you click top, and now a square is a square. It's good to start on the center, because if you don't do it, it won't create a ground point. Your design will be loose. So you can start by creating a square of 50 by 50. Sorry, I used a shortcut. So rectangle is R. You can just click R and it starts the rectangle. And it creates one rectangle. If you notice, 2 lines are blue and 2 are black. This is what we call defining your sketch. If the sketch is fully defined, it will be all black. If you want to, let's say, change this, I can just pull and it will change everything. Because it's not defined the length of these lines. These won't come off because they're defining 90 degrees here. They're parallel to these and also locked here, coincident. In this case, I want to guarantee this square doesn't move. So I hit D. Bom dia. I hit D for dimensions and come here. You can also come here, sketch, and dimension, here, dimension. It's better to use the shortcuts. And then you click this line, click once again. You have to pull. If you don't pull, I'll show you what happened. If you don't pull, it won't show any dimensions. So you need to pull something and see, actually, I want 50. And it will lock. And see, this is black now. So I can't move this dimension. I can still move this one. And I don't want that. What I do is, again, dimension, this one, I want 50. Now it's fully defined because everything is black. Okay? If I create another rectangle here, just to try, you don't need to. I can put dimension on everything. And it's still blue because it's not locked to anything. It doesn't have the reference point. It doesn't change the size, but it's not locked. Other thing that happens here is you have brackets on this measurement and this one. This is a driven measurement. What it means is that something else is locking already the design and you can't change that one. And it just tells you it's this size and you can't touch it. Okay? That's why it's on brackets and you can't change. You can double click and it won't matter. This you can double click and say 26 and change. Back to 25, enter, and it's okay. You can also define dimension between this, and it will give you the angle. Okay? Adding this dimension will over constrain the sketch, so something is already locking that dimension. You can't change it. You can also define the space between two features or two sketches. Well, this is one sketch, but two rectangles. In this case, I want 20. It still stays with 25. It just pulled the rectangle to the left. Okay? Are you being able to do this? Everything? Ooh. So dimension, click here. Just forget this dimension, click here, and it will make the angle. In this case, it's driven. That's why it's on brackets. This line and this line is already black because I can't move to the left or right. They are getting defined by the other square. But this one and this one is still blue. So I don't have anything to lock this. Any idea how to do it? How to avoid this? I want this locked, fully defined. Creating another rectangle?
No, you should not create a rectangle. You should create something else because rectangle has all of the arms are equal. That's why it's not giving
Yeah.
arms. Like clear resolution between the rectangle and the center of the axis.
This here?
The center.
This?
Yeah.
Okay. So dimension from this line to this line. And I know this is 50. I want this aligned with this, so I can put 30. Oh, this is 25, sorry. 25. Now it's fully defined. And I can't move anything, okay? I can't move. When it stays blue, it means all the shape is closed. It means you can make a profile out of this shape. We can create circles also. Sketch, circle. There's different kinds of circles. 2-point, 3-point circle, tangent, or usually we use the center diameter circle. Or you can use C as a shortcut. You'll see that your mouse will have a different icon. Can you notice a small blue line there? You can use as a reference point. So this is blue. If you go, there's something here. This is another, because you have different squares, it will detect a specific measurement. And if you're here, you can see a triangle. It means it's the center of that line. And if you go to the right, it will create a reference line. Since I already made on the top, it will create a square and say that's the center of my square. You click one and start doing your circle. You can already put the size of your circle here, or you can also just click and use the dimension to create the right size for your circle. Again, this can be moved. I don't have anything to lock this. I said it was in the center, but doesn't have any reference. Sketch here, circle, or use the C to create. Okay. So since this is not locked, I can use again dimension from the outside or from the center. I prefer from the center because it's the center of that. I don't have to calculate the radius or diameter, and I want from this side to be, this is 25. Still not defined because I can still move up and down. So dimension, oops, unselect everything with the ESC key. Dimension, center, up, and 25. Fully defined again.
Sorry, how do you deselect something?
The ESC key. The escape key. Escape key. The distance between this one and this one, you use D as a dimension, click one and the other, and just drag, and you'll find this is already driven by this one, and then drag down. Or if it's in a different direction, you choose this one and pull left, okay, to either sides. You can also make, sometimes there are diagonal lines. You can also create diagonal measurements and change everything. I'll try to show here. So if I want to change the angle between this, I can't because there are some constraints here. These are the constraints. This is constraints: coincident, collinear, concentric, midpoint, fixed or unfixed, parallel, perpendicular, horizontal. And you can use all of these to create your design. Sometimes they put already the constraints, like here, here, here you can see it shows these two. You can click over, just click delete and remove the constraint. This was driven. This was driven because it has the brackets. But I removed the constraints and now I can change. But I have to right click, toggle driving. Create the rectangle, please. I'll do again. Click R to create a square or a rectangle. It created these constraints. Let's delete them. Just click on the constraint and delete. Click delete, click delete. Get on this one. Now just click to select and then delete. Now this square doesn't have any constraints. So I can actually move the shape. And that's what we're going to do. Use dimension. And from this one to this one, instead of 90, now it's not driven. I can change it. It's, let's say, 120. And now I have an angle. Since it doesn't have any constraints on the sides, it will change as he wishes. Here, I want 30. It will try to change the shape as much as possible. See, here already changed the angle just to guarantee that this is 30, this is 20, and this is 120. So I'm not sure if I can put 90 degrees. Yeah, I can. It creates, this is why the, yes? Sorry? It depends on the order where you place the measurements. It will create the shape for the constraints you have. So in this case, maybe this is not the best option. You can control Z. What have you done? So let's see. I want this to stay right with 60. And now if I change this to 20, it just changes this angle. Okay, still not good. Dimension from here to here I want 90 degrees. Now if I change here, it has different behaviors. It depends on the order where you place your constraints. And again, this one won't be able to move because all the others. I'm going too fast or good enough? Anna? Doesn't need to be the same size. This is just an example. And again, this is loose. I can put where I want. The hand? Mm, the wheel button? The wheel button. Come on. You select the object and just click over the line and no. Come on, already did. And just click over the line and drag it. When is not defined. It only moves if it's blue. Okay? If the design is fully defined, I can't move it. Because it's locked here in the center and all these dimensions keep the design in the same place. Okay. Can I keep going, Anna? I'll leave this one uh, unlocked, let's say. Uh, what I was saying is, if this is driven, it's between brackets, you can maybe remove one of the measurements and just right click, toggle driving. And in this case, now I can change to 30 if it can solve. In this case, it can't solve because of the constraints I placed. Okay, but let's go back a little bit. 20 here, I'll remove this one and try to toggle driving this one. 30. Now it changes. Okay, so sometimes you need to change the constraints and all the dimensions to obtain what you actually want. Now we have circles and squares. They are really easy, they have shortcuts, but you can also make lines. If you want to do a weird shape, you can start the line on nothing, basically, or start on a square. You can see if you click on the with the with the with the mouse hovering a corner, it will create a constraint there. It might be good to start here. Let's say I want to start here and go to this corner. It creates a line and this one to this corner. Okay, I closed the shape. Why do I know it closed the shape? Anyone? Because it changed the color. Now it's blue here. If it's opened, it doesn't have any color. Okay? So you can, let's say, debug your design from looking at the colors it creates. And because in this case, sometimes you import files from other programs and you see white areas and yellow areas, and you actually know the problem is somewhere in that area. Um, we'll close this shape. Let's leave it like this. Yes? This one? There's a shortcut for line. L, or you can also find, in this case I already placed here, but you can find L. Doesn't have too many options here as a shortcut. Because there are so many options, they can't give it a shortcut for each one. They can, but it gets complicated. So line, circle, and rectangle, those are the three main that you usually use. There's also, I'll show you, I'll place the line again. I'll create a circle here just to get a little bit messier. 30. Sometimes it needs to have an enter twice just to lock the dimension. And in this case, I have lines overlapping. I think everyone already used trim option just to remove what I want. So I click T for trim. You can see a small scissor on the mouse. And you can choose the segment you want to cut. Let's say I want to cut this segment, this one also, this one, and this one. And now I have a weird shape here and still stays with the outside shape. I remove the circle and part of the rectangle to get what I desire. Then escape to remove the trim option. Also, you can use splines. It's the same as a line, but you can create curves and then just click green. And you can also come here and change the angle. It's a little bit limited because they're all dependent on each other. So if I change this one, it will change this curve. It's a little bit hard, and it works with semi-circles and circles. I don't know. Here, green, you can see. I don't want this spline, but you can use the spline for doing. Well, I'll leave the spline.
Also, how to put more options on the main bar?
Ah, here. Yeah, yeah. I was going to show you later, but so each option has a small arrow add to the toolbar. Every option you have, not the ones that have opened a menu, but all the hand options will have an arrow to add or remove. It will, if it's already added there, you can remove from the toolbar. And this works with all the menus on the Fusion 360. In the model or the cam, you'll see later, they all have this interface of adding and removing icons. Sorry, I deleted the spline, but I'm going to create to show you later something. If you define more points, it's going to be easier to mold the curve later than doing just a few. And here you can move the point. All the line changes because of the angles. Let's leave it like this. Another important features I already have here is the offset. The offset creates the same shape with, it's better to show. You can also use O as a shortcut. Let's say I want this square. It can go inside or outside. And you choose the distance between the original one and the one you want to create. Offset shape. So in this case, I'll put 3 millimeters, and it creates another square. In this case, it's fully defined because it makes the same shape, and I have chosen 3 millimeters, so it won't move. O. Okay. So offset, also you can find it here. Click. You find the shape you want to offset. You can see it highlights the shape you can add. You can also add more than one. Okay. And then there is a small arrow that you can use, or just use the measure here, or this menu here on the right. You can also use this menu. If it doesn't show up, usually it's a small arrow in the corner just to open. Okay? And you can choose more than one feature. Or sketch curves. I don't want this one. I'll just cancel. Just tell me when you finished. Não fez? Mas podes puxar para dentro. It depends. You can put negative values to go inside. You can just drag the offset. Everything's okay? Offset's done. You can see that we also have a really important feature here is the patterns: rectangle, circular, and mirrors. Also the scales. I'll show you one of them and see how it works. The rectangle pattern is the one that has more things to define. So in this case I had this selected, but I don't want this. So I'll select these two rectangles, and you can see it creates two arrows. One of them to the left and right, and the other up and down. And it already created some features. I'll zoom out a little bit and move to the side. So I'll redo rectangle pattern. You select the features you want, and you'll find two arrows. Two arrows because you can do horizontal or vertical. You can also do diagonal if you have a line. Because here you can see on the menu on the side there is directions. Select. You can define this direction and it will do diagonal. Also, it always makes 90 degrees or 180 in the direction you define. So let's say your home has windows on the side wall, but you want an angle. This is how you create, just to be different from the others. Here, directions. If I don't select the directions, it will just make the same as the design. If I select the direction, in this case diagonal, I can also use this or this, and it will change the 90 degrees compared to that direction. Let's go back to the normal. I'll put to this side because there is also too many. Here you can also define the number of features you want to create. Let's say I want 10. It will add on this space 10 features. Okay? And then I can increase or decrease. Also, you can make on symmetric or one direction for both vertical or horizontal. You can also define extend or the value you put here, the distance, is divided by the number of features you added or objects, or you can place spacing, and that defines the space between each object. Okay, you can later try. Let's say if I want 20 between each, or minus 20 in this case, to change direction, minus 30. It means between each center I have minus 30 millimeters. And again, I can you use the same for both. So if you can't put spacing for one and extend for the other. It's spacing for both. Or you can also, as you can see, there's some checkboxes. You can remove some of the features. Let's say you want just windows around, you can remove the ones you don't need. So it's really flexible. I'll do OK. Just leave the features there. I'll show you now the circular pattern. Yeah. Um, the up arrow, this one? Maybe you didn't define the direction here. Try to add something here and the distance. Maybe the distance is 0 and you can't see the arrow. Maybe redo the operation. If you want to edit this, you have to double click. Sometimes it's hard because there's so many features here. Can you see this? You click once, try to select only this, or double click and it will open the menu again to edit. Sometimes it's hard to understand where are the edit menus and the constraints. Let me try to. Yes, it works. If you change the original, it will update the pattern. So let's say this is my original square. If I change the, let's say, the offset to 5, it will change on all of them. One last thing, well, two of them. Circular pattern. This is good to make different shapes, beautiful shapes. Let's say it asks, you also need to understand what the program is asking you to do or to add. First, it asks for the objects. Let's say I want this circle. Then a center point where everything is going to rotate. In this case, I want here. And it asks for a full rotation. It means around this it will create a full rotation of objects and the number of objects we want to add. Let's say 5, 10. You can add, if you put too many, they will overlap, but it will do the full revolution. Or you can put an angle and say only 180 degrees, or maybe add the number of the angle with the arrow. Looks funny to create. Looks like the springs we buy to play. Everyone managed to create the circular pattern? No? Okay, Circular pattern. Here I placed on my toolbar, but you can come here, circular pattern, objects. I'll create another one to reduce the... You can select more than one object. Then your center point, let's say I want here the center point. Vitor, o Ricardo não consigo ver. Ahm, procura aqui um ícone de circular junto ao teu padrão e faz dois cliques. Okay? So, again, circular pattern here or in the menu. Objects. The objects mean what you want to replicate. I want to this square. It means it has 14 objects or lines. Then you select here to find your center point. In this case, I want this center point. And it creates a type of full revolution. You can put an angle also. The suppress option is to be able to remove or not what the squares are, and use the quantity to generate as many as you wish. And then you click OK to leave the features there. This is the center to edit. This is where Joanna wasn't finding the... Yes?
Okay, sorry.
You have to see the menu, what it asks. If it doesn't create, it's something missing to select. So for those who already, Anna, already did the circular pattern? Okay. I'll show you the mirror now, where you can create a feature mirrored. In this case, again, I want a square. Let's use what we already have. I selected what the objects, and now I have to decide the mirror line. So where it should flip. It can flip down. If I choose this line here, it will flip down here. You can remove again or choose this line. It will flip to this side. It always compares the distance and flips in that direction. So in this case, if I flip with this, it comes here. Because it flips from, this is the center line, it flips to that side. You need to have a little bit of spatial perception to understand where it's going to stay the feature. So you first select the object, go to mirror line, decide where you want to flip. You can flip on the exact same shape, or no? No. Here. Something similar. If you don't have a mirror line, you can create a temporary line just to make the mirror. And then OK, and it will stay the second square. This option has a small problem in my point of view. You can't edit after doing it. You have different icons here. None of them give you the option to edit the mirror. I couldn't find a way of doing it. Maybe someone actually knows. I never looked on the internet, sadly. But okay. Again, mirror here or here. Select the objects. Select the mirror line. I want here to get a weird place. And okay. And you have something mirrored. Let's try something. Change.
The first one that is useful.
I'm going to try. Yes. Everything is connected. I'll control Z. So this created this pattern and also the circular pattern. It's always the same square. So these dimensions, it's a little bit hard to explain, but each dimension has a specific ID. So this one we'll figure out. Let's make a small square. So I want dimension this with the same size as this. So if I click on this dimension, okay, you can see D2 under the 50. So this dimension was considered the dimension 2. And if I click this dimension, it will put here. You can also add something or subtract or divide any operation. And if you click enter, it will stay with that dimension. If this is again part of the constraints where you can create, and this is now a function of this dimension and not actually, if I change this, this will change. The same way if I change this, it will change all the squares. Okay, so this dimension, it's 19, but I want to be related with something else. So this dimension, I want to be this side always as the same as this one. This case is D4. If you click on the other dimension, it will put his ID, and you can click enter. It's going to be a function of that dimension. If I change this one to 30, it will take some time to calculate everything, but this one also changed. So it's a constraint that you can put. I think what I've shown is most of the functions you use. You can also use sketch scale really fast. You select the entities, the point where it's going to scale, or here, and you just use percentage of one. One is 100%. So let's say I want 10%. I'll put 0.1 and the square came here. So 0.5, half of the size. Okay? I'll cancel because I don't want to scale this. Oop. And this is most of the options you're going to use. This, rectangle, line. There's also ellipse, polygon, arcs, conic curves, points, text. All different things that you'll find out later during your work. So now that you design what you wanted, you can stop the sketch and it will give you a small preview on your design. Now we want to actually create a 3D feature. You come here, extrude, or you click E, they give you the shortcut. If you don't have here, you can come down and find it here. And select the profile you want. See, the area is closed. I can select. And there is an arrow where you can pull up and down. You can create a small angle here to create weird shapes. or you can use your menu. I'll just lock it here and use one side, two sides, and symmetry. If you use two sides, you can say 10 here or 20 here. If you use one side, it will only leave one. If you put symmetry, what you pull up, it will go down. Also, you can put on distance, but this you can only use if you have other features. So, if you have two extrusions, you can make a third one from one to the other. That's why we use to object or all. In this case is the first one. Let's leave it distance. You can also put the distance here. Let's place 50 and enter. It will close the sketch. This is bad because we done most of the work on the sketch now and it disappeared. Well, actually didn't. It just hidden the sketch. You can see the extrude. Yeah, you have to change the perspective and use the mouse button to navigate your page. Mustafa is having trouble. Ricardo. Um, so this the sketch was hidden. You can see a menu here on your left, and you have bodies. This is the body you created. It highlighted. You can also hide with the light bulb and the sketches. We only have one sketch. You can put it back if you want to use the same sketch to create almost all your features. Okay. In this case, I don't want these squares, so we won't do anything with them. I'll just work around this one. Um, as you can see, when I created the extrusion, it created another feature on the timeline. If I pull back, it will disappear and leave only the sketch and then put back. In this sketch, I wanted this circle to be on the top of this with the exact same size because I want to make a hole not from the bottom but from the top. So I can create a new sketch by clicking on the sketch. This time we won't choose the planes, the original planes, but the planes from our design. So I'll zoom in. I'll remove this sketch for now to be easier to understand. You have the origin and the planes. As you can see, most of the planes can be selected. I want the top plane. And now it added a new sketch. In this sketch, I want to be exactly the same place as the other. So I can replace the sketch. I can see the line, the circle here. And I can use the function project. So here, project includes project. You can use also the P as a shortcut. Now you can select features from other sketches and it creates the same on your sketch. So it basically makes a copy of the other design. You can also make from the shape you already have on the bottom. So if I don't have this, I can just use a surface to project the whole contour. And then click OK and you have a new sketch with the same features as the sketch below, but without the constraints. Let's put on top. No, I don't need top view now. I'll just exit the sketch. You can also exit the sketch by clicking on the extrusion button. So he knows you want to go to 3D. Click E. It goes to extrude. Click the features you want, in this case the circle. And instead of creating another feature or object or body, in this case, I can cut the body, the existing body. It stays red. And also you can make that weird thing with the angle. So let's try the two object option. Here on the right, instead of distance, put two object. And I want the bottom surface. And it goes all the way down to the bottom surface. And I don't care about the distance. I don't need to know the distance. And I just place OK. Have you managed to do this, Mustafa?
Yeah, but in my case, it's not creating the angle. It created like an inside object.
Yeah.
It's not creating the angle.
But I'm not adding any angle. No. I'm just showing it's possible, but I'm not creating angles. Okay? Because it's that feature is only used when you know the angle you want to create for the cone. In this case, we don't want to create cones because we have other feature I'm going to show. Other option. It's a lot easier to create. Joanna, can I continue or? I'll try something. Okay. You're having trouble or not really? So, if I want to edit the first one, because the timeline already added again an extrusion, I can come here, double click, and put, let's say, 100. And it basically stayed with the same thing, but with a higher or different dimension on the height. And why it stayed with the same hole and with a different height. So I'll go back on the timeline, double click, use the arrow or in my menu on my right or here on the small window, put 100 and enter to finish. Why it stayed with the hole down? It was 50 and now it's 100. Nothing changed on the hole. Why? Anyone knows how to explain this? Sorry? Yeah. Also that, but something real special that we've done. Not the project. To object. So it always references to that object and not the distance. Because if I leave distance, let's say 50, it won't go down. It stays at 50. Because all the sketch created on that plane was pulled up. And if it was distance, it will stay at minus 50. but I added more material, so it wouldn't go all the way down. If I wanted to keep the whole, I would have to edit this and put two objects and define the plane I want. Okay, and it will stay, even if I change the previous design. When you had too many features like this, it starts to get complicated. The computer has to calculate too many things, and sometimes it doesn't work. You really have to redo and start again from a previous version that you saved. But we're talking about 20, 30, 50 changes on the same object. We can now save because we've done some of our work. It opens this window the first time. Let's say workshop first test. Save. And you can see it saved your design with the version 0, I believe. It's sending your design to the cloud. That's why it's kind of loading or uploading the design, and created a version 1 to your design. Then uh, again, let's use the sketches we created to use other features. So this time I want to create a different construction plane. In this case, an offset plane. I can create this shape. I know this shape is against the bottom plane, the first plane we started. So I can click here and it creates a new plane. And I can change the height of this one. Let's place it at 100. It's going to stay at the same height as this. Okay. And it stayed there. Every time you want to hide or show something, you have this navigation. You have the origin to show the origin planes. You have the bodies if you don't want the bodies, one or all of them. The sketches or the construction planes now. Construction, offset plane. You click the plane you want to create an offset from. So I'll just Control Z. It saves everything, basically. Even changing this, it saves with the Control Z. Okay, I don't have any plane now. I'll go to offset plane. Click on this surface and create an offset plane. I can also write the distance here. Click on the top to stay over this design. I want to create a circle without having to start a sketch. So you can click circle, C, and then it highlights the planes you can work with. Let's work with this plane and just create a circle over this. This is weird because it looks like you're creating a sketch on the same plane as the other, but actually it's not. If you change the perspective, you can see it's at 100 difference from the other because you created a different plane to start your sketch. So you really need to work your perspectives on your computer because you can get some mistakes while building your part, and work on different planes can get complicated. You need a spatial perspective again and understand if the distance is right, the position is right. Yes?
My offset plan has a limited size.
A small size, doesn't matter, it's the same. Even if your plane looks like a small square, you can basically create on an infinite scale. It stays on that height. Okay. These planes, I've shown you the offset, but there's also at an angle. We'll try to create later another one.
But how can get back to my actual plane because it just stuck in the
So the timeline, you created a plane, and also here on the visibility, here you can show the plane again or remove it. Was I clear? Or okay. So I have a new sketch, as you can see, on the new plane. It's at 100. It's the same height as this one. You can stop the sketch. I left this sketch here to show you what I can do. Remember the cone you wanted to do? You can do something similar with the loft operation. So what it does is creates from one shape to the other a surface. This can be done by extrusion. It creates extrusion or cut. So you can the program can detect if you're going to cut something or creating something. Or you can define here if you want to. Let's say if it finds something uh, while you're doing the extrusion or the loft, it will automatically change to cut, but you want to intersect or join. So you can change here on the right side, join or cut or intersect, just to keep. In this case, we don't have anything crossing, but if it was crossing an object or a body, it will cut. But if you want to join, just change from cut to join here. Okay. This profile, if you had more than one in different planes, you can basically do one after the other. Sometimes it can't change because there's too many corners, and mathematically it can't calculate, so you have to change sometime your shape. Place OK, and you have a loft created. These lofts planes, you can't create a sketch. If you come here, you can't select this. It means it's a curve, and you can't create any feature there unless you create a plane and then cross that plane. Understood?
So I have to do the volcano.
This volcano, I'll go back. I have this sketch I created in the new plane, and I have the original sketch in the first plane. They are separate between two planes. Okay? Now you have the option. No. Back to model. So you have the option here, loft. It creates a transitional shape between two or more sketches, profile, or planar faces. Every single function here has a description and it says how to use it. This is really important because if you don't know how to actually work with this, you can just hover, wait a little bit, and it will say how to do it. Click loft. You have one sketch here, one sketch here. You click one and the other, and it creates a profile from one to the other, and it closes everything. Then you click OK or enter, and it will create the volcano. You can make from different kind of shapes like stars or uh, really weird stuff. Doesn't matter. Okay. Now let's make a small break, 15 minutes. I need to drink a little bit of water.